Sound check. Sound check. Mic check. 1 2 1 2. We are live on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. As y'all are checking in, hope everybody's having a great start to your Wednesday. I'm going to turn my timer on. It's a great timer. Some people call these, no, it's not really a Pomodoro timer, it's just a timer where you can set it to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 10 minutes. You can even set it custom if you want to. And this will help you stay on track time wise. And we know all of us are on the clock in life. So I like having this right here next to me so I can set my timer. I set my timer at 60 minutes. I got 60 minutes to get to the content. Then we're going to get to the conversation. So anybody who is watching this and you're wondering if this is a recording or if it's AI, because I'm not responding to comments in real time. That's the reason why, because I don't respond to comments in real time until after I get through my material. So the topic here today, we're going to talk about the first 3 laws of economics. Now, why? Question is, good morning, Courtney. Why are we talking about the first 3 laws of economics? Because maybe you are not an economist or a finance person. Neither am I. I just play one on the internet. Well, we're talking about this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's come to my understanding over the years that most people do not understand what the first 3 laws of economics are. And they don't understand how these laws apply to their lives, not just to the money in your pocket or dollars in your bank account, but how they apply to life in general. And that's the reason why I want to talk about it, because these are laws. They are not theories, and these things apply to everyone at all times. And as I get to explaining these, what they are, how they work, and how you will see them in your own life, even if you pay no attention to economics or finance, you're going to realize that these laws apply to you no matter what you do, because, again, they're laws. Laws apply to everyone at all times. Just like most of you are not physicians, or you're not physicists, actually not physicians, physicists, but everybody understands that the law of gravity applies to you whether you think about it or not. If you jump up in the air, eventually you're going to come back down to the ground. Why? Because gravity is pulling you down to the ground at 9.8 meters per second. That is a law. Again, think about it or don't think about it does not mean that the law stops applying simply because you are not aware. So my belief is that the more aware you are of a thing, the better you can leverage and use it to your benefit, and make sure that it is not used against you and doesn't put you in a worse position. So I'm going to explain these laws, what they are, how they work, and some examples of them, such that they cannot be used against you in a negative way, and that you do not become a victim of your own ignorance. And ignorance simply means to not know something. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. I'm not saying that as a pejorative. Ignorant just means you don't know something on a certain subject. I'm going to make sure none of you becomes victims of your own ignorance, because you will understand these laws of economics and you'll understand why things are how they are in certain aspects of life. Even if it seems to not make sense to you now, when you understand these laws, it will make sense. Now, I will tell you all before I even get into my material that I'm going to take all questions and comments at the end. So I got my timer on right now. As you can see, it is right now saying 57 minutes. I'm giving myself no more than this much time to get through the content. I might not even take that much time. And then we will open the floor up for discussion and commentary. And by the way, if you are watching me on TikTok, make sure you click the link to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, because TikTok has already warned me that I'm one strike away from getting my account banned on TikTok. And that is not a joke. They told me that like 4 days ago. So just in case I get banned on TikTok, make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube, which I'm live on right now, and my Instagram, which I'm also live on right now. I'm live in 7 different places: YouTube, Rumble, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So just all of you are watching me on just one of those, but I'm on a bunch of them at the same time. So introducing myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 40 books, done 4 TEDx talks. I own this company called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we help service-based professionals, often people who have licenses, to scale their businesses up, systematize and scale their businesses up from the 6-figure level to the 7-figure level. And that's people in finance space, medical space, coaches, consultants, salespeople. Well, those are the kind of people that we help in their businesses. You can learn more about that. We're going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. So all that out the way, let's get into what we need to talk about here today, because as I already told you, This is about understanding how the universe works, how people work, and how all of this has a whole lot to do with your decisions and your subsequent behaviors based on the decisions that you make. So, on that note, again, I've appointed myself to set everyone straight on these laws and help you understand how and why they work, how they apply, even if and when money is not the subject. Point number one. Again, we're talking the first 3 laws of economics that everyone needs to understand, no matter how old you are, no matter what you do for a living. Number one law of economics is supply and demand. That is the number one law of economics, supply and demand. Now, what does that mean? All of you have heard of supply and demand. It means that anytime, let me get back. I'll come back to that in a second. The definition of supply and demand, if you were to just look this up, in economic talk, it says prices are determined by the relationship between supply, i.e. how much of a good or service is available, and demand, i.e. how much people actually want that good or service. So for example, if the new iPhone comes out and is in high demand, but Apple produces only a limited quantity of the phone, then the price will rise due to scarcity. All right, this one is pretty simple. Again, all of you have heard of supply and demand. You want an example of this? Think of in clothing, like in merchandise. Someone puts out some exclusive merchandise, but they don't put out enough for everybody to buy some. So people line up, right, in order to get it. Remember, I don't know if they still do this these days. It's maybe not as popular as it used to be, but it used to be a big thing that when a new iPhone came out, people would sleep outside of the Apple store so they could be first in line to buy the phone because there were only a limited amount of phones available. And if you didn't get the phone the day it came out, you might have to wait 30 days until they replenish the supply in order for you to buy the phone. It used to be like that with iPhones. I don't know if it's like that anymore. I was looking up the iPhone 16, which is the current new phone right now, and they were saying you can get it tomorrow. I didn't even know it came out yet, but I guess maybe they're not doing that as much anymore. I don't know. I remember like with Jordan sneakers, before you could buy them on the internet, if someone wanted a new pair of Jordans that were coming out on a certain day, you slept outside or you stood outside in line so you could be the first person to buy the new Jordans when they came out. And if you weren't able to get a pair, then it might be months before you could get them or you could never get them. And then on the resale market, the people who had bought the sneakers, instead of paying $200 for the sneakers in the store because they were first in line, they could go sell them on the internet for $1,000 or $2,000. Why? Because of the demand. The demand was very high because the supply was very low. So when something is scarce, the demand for it tends to go up. And when something is plentifully abundant and available, then the demand for it tends to be lower, or at least the price of it is lower simply because it's so widely available. So if you think about this, you'll see how this applies in so many aspects of life. Anything that is scarce, people will hang on it simply because it's so available. Give you another example that you can use in everyday life. You look at somebody like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, everybody knows who he is. And he hasn't played basketball for roughly 20 plus years, almost 25 years since he's been in the active basketball player conversation. And Michael Jordan doesn't do a lot of press, doesn't do a lot of interviews. He doesn't do much media. So if Michael Jordan was to do something like appear on somebody's podcast or do an interview, it would get a whole lot of attention, not just because it's Michael Jordan, of course, because of Michael Jordan, but because of how rarely he speaks in public. And someone who speaks in public rarely, when they do speak, if we know who they are, then there's going to be a lot of demand for it simply because it doesn't happen that often. Now, someone who speaks all the time in public, they may still get attention, but because they do it all the time, if you happen to miss one, then it's kind of okay because they're always out there. They're always talking. For example, Donald Trump, it looks like almost every other day he's taking questions from the press, which is something that his predecessor rarely did. But because he's doing it all the time, you may miss one or two and it's okay because he's doing it all the time. He's always talking. So you may not look at it as a big deal because it happens so frequently. So this is how supply and demand works. And if you look at, as I said, any example you can think of in your life, they even do this online now. That when I remember a friend of mine, this is probably maybe about 12, 13 years ago, we were on vacation and he was trying to buy a pair of Jordans, but now they were doing it online. So he had it all queued up on the computer, the website to buy the Jordans. He had the Jordans in his shopping cart. And he had his credit card information already loaded in on the page. All he had to do was click the button that says buy, and he would have bought the Jordans. And he had to get them at, I don't know what time the Jordans came out, 8 in the morning or 12 midnight, whatever it was. And he was ready. He was like, yeah, I set an alarm. I'm going to get on and get my Jordans. And then the time came and I saw him the next morning. I said, did you get the Jordans? He said, no. As soon as I clicked the button, they were already sold out because everybody was trying to do the same thing. The point being, because the supply was so low, the demand was extremely high. That's how the supply and demand curve works. So what does this all mean? It means As long as there is a demand for anything, there will be someone or something who or that will supply to fulfill that demand. Simple as that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to a female friend of mine, and she was lamenting or somewhat complaining to me, Dre, I don't like that there are all these Instagram ass models. That's the phrase that she used. There's Instagram ass models showing off their bodies to get attention. And as a female, she's talking, but she didn't like the fact that there are women doing this. And I'm bringing that up to tell you that the reason why Instagram ass models exist and the reason why the P word industry exists, the reason why these things exist is because there are customers, there are buyers for these things. So any aspect of life that, or anything that you see happening in life that you don't like, and you're wondering why it continues to exist, why won't people just get rid of this thing? Why does it keep getting produced? The reason it continually gets produced is because somebody is buying it. Nothing will be continually supplied if no one is demanding it. Not forever. And there eventually comes a point where something will stop getting supplied because nobody is demanding it. So again, anything in life that you see and you're wondering why it exists because you think it is terrible and you really don't like it and you wish it would go away, the reason it's not going away is because somebody wants it, and that's the reason why it is continually produced. So understand there's somebody asking for that thing to exist. So if you don't like mosquitoes or bees or ants, there is something in the universe that is asking for mosquitoes, bees, and ants. Whether it's a person, whether it's a plant, whether it's a thing, there's something in the universe that needs that thing. That's the reason why they keep getting produced. Because if nothing needed it, they would eventually go extinct and they would go away. That includes people, that includes animals, that includes plants, and includes topics, subjects, et cetera, et cetera. I remember, again, I was telling you, I already told you the Instagram ass model thing. If everybody stopped paying attention to that stuff, then it would cease to exist. Simple as that. If no one was paying attention to the P word, P-O-R-N, if no one paid attention to it and nobody was buying it and nobody was clicking on the links, there would be the industry would not exist. It would cease to exist. It would completely go away. If no one was paying money for access to OnlyFans, there would be no OnlyFans. There would be nobody showing themselves off to get attention in that way. Why? Because if there is no demand, there shall be no supply. This is a law of economics. So what does this have to do with any of you? I just explained this to you. Anytime there's a demand for something, somebody's going to fulfill that demand with a supply. And it does not have to be a good thing. It just has to be something that people want. And wealth, by the way, when you hear people talk about wealth, wealth is simply defined as what people want. If you have something that other people want, you have wealth because you can translate that wealth, that thing that other people want. Okay. You can translate into something that you want. So for example, a lot of people think wealth means, a lot of people think wealth means money. Wealth does not mean money. Wealth exists on a higher plane than money. Wealth is up here. Money is down here. Wealth means you have something that people want, and it doesn't have to necessarily be money. All of you think about this right now. There are things in your life that you want that are not money. The answer for every human being is, of course, yes, there are things that you want that are not money. Everybody needs food, clothing, shelter. None of those is money, but we all need them. We all need food to eat. We all need clothes on our back, and we all need a place to lay our heads at night. Everybody needs these things. These are necessities of life. None of them are money. You use money to get access to them. And if you have food, clothing, shelter, i.e. you sell food, you sell clothes, or you sell homes, then guess what? People will give you money in order to get access to it. All right, that's a form of supply and demand. And if you happen to be supplying something that you know for a fact a certain market needs, and a market just means people who are willing to give money to get something. If you know a certain market needs a thing and you supply it, then you're going to make money just by simple logic. This is how economics work. So if you know there's an audience of people who, for example, let's say you know that there's a market of people who need diapers and baby clothes and baby formula. And what else do you need when you're having a kid? You need, let's just say those things: diapers, baby clothes, baby formula. Is there a market of people who need this stuff? The answer is yes. Who's the market? The market is people who are about to be a parent, whether they are already a parent, they have a young child that was a newborn, or they're about to have a newborn. All you have to do, if you sell diapers or baby formula or baby clothes, all you have to do is make sure that the people who are about to have a kid or recently had a kid or are friends with someone who's about to have a kid, because we give them gifts, right? All we have to do is make sure that they know that you exist and you have something that they're probably going to need, and you will make money by simply putting yourself in the line of where the demand is coming from. And again, this is how you think about marketing is, all right, who actually needs what I'm offering? Or actually a better way of looking at it is, where is there already a demand? It's better to find a demand, and then you create something that can supply that demand rather than creating something and trying to hope that somebody wants it, because that's where a lot of entrepreneurs make a mistake. Instead, you should ask yourself, what's a problem that already exists in the marketplace? And again, marketplace simply means people who have a problem and they're willing to spend money to solve it. That's all marketplace means. What's a problem that exists in the marketplace and how could I possibly solve it? Good news is you don't have to solve every problem in the marketplace. You only really need to solve one. If you want to solve 10 problems, you can do that. Like if you want to be Amazon, you want to solve 1 million problems with 1 million products, you can do that. But you also can be someone like Apple and solve basically one problem. The one problem Apple solves is the problem that they created. You need a phone that has a MP3 player, a computer, and a phone all mixed together into one device. Nobody thought that was a problem until Apple told you it was a problem. And now everybody has a device. Everybody has a smartphone now, even if it's not an iPhone. Apple created a problem that didn't exist, and they got everybody to buy the solution from them. And this is the reason why Steve Jobs is a genius, because he was able to create a problem out of thin air, and then he solved it by selling you a product. I would suggest most of you don't have to be Steve Jobs level genius. I suggest that you find a problem that people already know they have rather than trying to make them believe they have a problem. The bottled water industry is another example of creating a problem that nobody knew existed. Those of you who are old enough, you remember in the early 90s and into the 80s and all before that, people had no problem turning on the faucet in their kitchen, pouring that water into a glass and drinking it. That was not a problem. Nowadays, there are people who would never drink water out of a faucet. It's almost like it's toxic. Like they can't do it. Why? Because the bottled water industry sold you the idea that drinking water out of a tap was somehow bad or harmful or is going to hurt you in some way. So you have to drink water that's either filtered or in a bottle, or it can't just be straight from the tap. What they did is create a problem. So now there became a demand for something that nobody wanted last week. Now everybody wants water in a bottle. And guess what? They just keep selling you bottled water. Bottled water makes a lot of money. Why? Because they created a demand and then they just supplied it. What I'm suggesting most of you do is find a demand that already exists. For example, when I first started putting material out on the internet, a lot of y'all who just come across me recently don't know this, but my background is in sports. I was playing basketball. So most of my content for my first 10 years online, and I'm going to take questions and comments at the end, by the way, was all basketball related. It was just me showing basketball players how to practice, how to train, do drills, stuff to get better at basketball. And I knew exactly what that audience needed. I knew exactly what they were demanding because I was helping people who were just 5 or 10 years younger than me. They were in the same situation I used to be in. I'm just older than them. So I knew every single problem they had. I knew everything they were thinking. I knew every issue they were dealing with. And I knew everything they needed to know that they didn't even know they needed to know. So all I was doing was helping the people who were coming up behind me doing the exact same thing that I had been trying to do. In the marketing world, we call this scratching your own itch. In other words, you take a problem that you already had and you've already solved, and then you go help the next wave of people who are having that same problem, who need a solution. You know exactly what they need because you used to be that person. It's kind of like a person who has kids who are now teenagers, and you start helping out parents who have kids who are 8 and 9 years old, or you have newborns, and you went through all the problems yourself with your kids. Now you help the next wave of parents with their kids because you're scratching your own itch. You already know exactly what they need to understand, and you can help them out with solving problems that they don't know how to solve because you know they're going to run into. That's a form of scratching your own itch. And the benefit of scratching your own itch is that you already know exactly what the demands are. So all you have to do is come up with the supply. You don't even have to do market research because you are the market research. Your own life experience is the market research. So as I just gave you an example on myself personally, I already had done the market research on knowing what an up and coming basketball player needs between the ages of 13 and 24 because I was that person. I knew every single thing they needed. I knew every problem they had. I knew every solution that they needed to find. All I did was package it up and put it into easily digestible format. And I was able to gain a huge market of people simply because I was solving a problem that I knew they had. All right, so all of you can do this in your own businesses, in your own lives, etc. So as long as people are willing to pay for access for something, then you have supply and demand. And this is how all of the universe works, by the way. Secondly, we're talking about the laws of economics. First 3 laws of economics. So you got supply and demand, number 1. Number 2 is the law of diminished marginal returns. Now, that sounds confusing to some people. Some of you may not have heard of this phrase, but let me explain what it means. It means that when you add more of one input, such as capital, like that means money, or labor, that means people, to a fixed resource, like land or machinery, and I'm going to give you some examples to make this easy, it eventually leads to decreased additional output. All right. So in short terms, if I had to put that into everyday language, It means that you will get a certain result when you first start doing a thing. But the more you do that thing, you may still get results, but the results get smaller and smaller and smaller because the fixed resource gets used to whatever the input is that you're given. So for example, let me give you an example. Let's say you're running a factory and you need to hire some workers so that you can get more work done in your factory. When you first start hiring workers, your factory actually, the production goes up because you hired people and now you can get more things done. The issue is if you just keep hiring people, but you don't increase the size of your factory or increase the amount of your operations, then eventually you're going to have too many workers and you're going to be a bunch of people sitting around doing nothing because they don't have any work to do because you have too many workers and not enough work. The factory workers are going to start bumping into each other and you have to pay all these people money even though they're not producing anything. So you're actually going to start hurting yourself if you just keep adding workers without adding any extra work for them to actually do. That's the law of diminished marginal returns. So anytime you have a fixed resource, you cannot just keep adding stuff to the resource because eventually the resource gets overwhelmed. Let me give you another example. As a human being, all of us understand that we need food, clothing, shelter to live, right? Everybody understands that you have to eat food to live. Most of you eat food at some point every single day. The thing is, there comes a point where the demand for food that your body has, I'm connecting all of these laws together, the demand for food that your body has should not be overwhelmed with the supply of food that you give it. Everybody understands? Can all you read between the lines of what I just said? Your human body has a demand for food. You should not oversupply that demand. What do we call it when someone oversupplies their body's demand for food? We call it obesity. We call it being out of shape. We call it overeating. We call it you're fat. We call it you have a big stomach. We call it you're not going to live as long as you could because your body is working too hard because you are giving it more food than the body actually needs. That's a supply and demand curve mixed with diminished marginal returns. So in other words, all of you understand today, most of you are going to eat lunch at some point today, right? So when you go eat lunch, there's a certain amount of food that your body needs because you're hungry and you should eat that food. But you're going to reach a point where the supply and demand curves meet. The demand for food is met by the supply. If you keep eating food after you have passed the demand point, now you are actually adding weight. You're making your body work harder than it needs to. You are slowing down your digestion and hurting your metabolism, and it may cause you to gain weight and be out of shape 5, 10, 6 months or years from now simply because you have oversupplied the demand. See, your body is a fixed resource. You can't make your body bigger. You can't make your stomach bigger. Your body can get bigger, but you can't make your stomach bigger. So anytime you put more food in your stomach than your stomach actually needs, you are leading to diminished marginal returns. The more food you eat does not make you feel better. Food makes you feel good when you're hungry, but then when you're not hungry anymore, you need to stop eating. You need to push away from the table, put the fork down, and stop eating. Any of you have read anything about health, or let's just say health, that your stomach is the size of your fist. That's how big your stomach is, this big. So all of you make a fist because we all have different size hands. Your stomach is the size of your fist. So if you're eating a whole plate full of food in the United States of America, the reason why we have an obesity epidemic in America is because we eat too much. Any of you ever go to a restaurant and make a fist like this? When you go to a restaurant, most restaurants, I'm talking like things that are easily accessible. Most restaurants, especially a place like Applebee's or TGI Fridays or Olive Garden, next time you go there, look how much food they put on the plate. And then look at your fist, and then look at the food on the plate. Then ask yourself, why do we have an obesity epidemic in America? Right there in front of you is going to be the answer. Look at your fist, which is your stomach, and then look at the amount of food they put on the plate. And many of us have been trained, whatever's on the plate, you got to eat it. This is how we get overweight. This is the diminished marginal returns. This is an economic law. This obesity can be explained by economics. And I don't mean money. By economics, that's how you explain it. And what happens is people tend to eat more than they need to eat when they're out at restaurants. And then when you're at home, you do the same thing. You put all that food on your plate at home as well. When people eat at Thanksgiving, that's a big eating food holiday we have here in America, right? Isn't Thanksgiving the big day that we eat a whole bunch of food? How much food do you eat at Thanksgiving? Again, your stomach doesn't get bigger because of Thanksgiving. Everybody, in case any of you didn't know, newsflash. Your stomach does not get bigger, and you do not all of a sudden get hungrier just because it's Thanksgiving. All right, so you weren't super hungry last Thursday, but all of a sudden, because it's Thanksgiving, now we just got to eat a whole bunch more food. And again, I'm not telling you not to eat food at Thanksgiving. All right, some of you probably make amazing Thanksgiving feasts that can feed the whole family for weeks. All right, I am not knocking you for doing that. And I'm going to take questions and comments at the end, by the way. What I'm saying is the economic law of diminished marginal returns states that if you eat more than you need, you are going to get a worse result over time. The more you do it, the worse your results get. Again, this is economic law, folks. This is not my personal opinion or personal theory. Another example, this is a person who's never lifted weights. Any of you who started lifting weights at some point, you can remember when you did. When you first start lifting, your body transforms in ways. You get all these fast results. Like next first 30 to 60 days, you get all these results. You can see the difference. You can see your muscle tone. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't know I had these kind of muscles, because your body has never had that outside stimulus before. But over time, if you keep lifting, it's not that you stop getting results or that you should stop lifting weights. The thing is, your results stop coming as quickly simply because your body gets used to what you're doing, which is lifting weights, which means you still can get change, but the change happens less and less and less, and it's less obvious because you're already lifting weights. So I went to the gym this morning. There's guys in there who are like bodybuilders. I can tell by the way they move around their body shape. You know, these bodybuilder guys and girls where they go to the competitions where they just stand there and pose, and that's the competition. Those people, all right, they got to do all kinds of stuff to their bodies to get any type of visible change, because they've been lifting so much weights for so long that there's only so much visible results you can see in a person like that. And you got to be really an expert in another person's body to even see what changed. Now, if I take any of you who's never lifted weights before and put you in the gym, I don't even have to give you that much instruction. I just tell you, just stay in there and just use machines. In 60 days, you're going to look different if you just do it consistently, and you don't even have to have any specialized training. Why? Because again, this law, diminished marginal returns. Okay. That's how it works. The more and more you add to a thing, the less ROI you get from it, if that thing is fixed. Now, if the thing is expanding at the same time you're expanding, so let's go back to give you a caveat to this. It's actually not a caveat to the law, because the law says a fixed resource. So a fixed resource means your human body is a fixed resource, meaning you can't make your stomach larger. There's only so much food the stomach can hold, no matter how big you are. So some person's 400 pounds, or that same person's 150 pounds, their stomach is still the same size. Your stomach does not expand because your waistline expands. The stomach is still the same size. So that's a fixed resource. If I have a factory and I hire 10 people and my factory is running perfectly, but now I hire 10 more and there's not enough room for the new 10 workers, that's a fixed resource because my factory is still the same size. Now, if I expand my factory to be twice as big and then I hire some more workers, that's a different situation because that's not a fixed resource. The resource is expanding. So you look at a company like Amazon, for example. When they started out, Jeff Bezos was selling products out of his garage, right? Metaphorically. I don't know if he was actually selling out of his garage, but let's just say he was. As they have added more workers, and Amazon has, who knows, thousands of people working for them these days, they keep expanding their operations. So they keep building new factories. They build new distribution centers. They have different ways to have people work for them. You could drive an Amazon truck. You could work at the Amazon office. You could work in one of the distribution centers. The point is they have expanded their operations, so the resource got bigger. So as Amazon adds more employees, they don't get the law of diminished marginal return because they are not a fixed resource. Their resource keeps getting bigger and bigger. So this law does not apply to them because that's not the law. The law is a fixed resource that you don't change. For example, I want to give another example. Planet Earth. According to most people, and even those of you, whatever side you're on that whole situation about the climate, we all can agree that the Earth itself is generally a fixed resource, meaning the Earth is not getting bigger and it's not getting smaller. It's the same size, and we got the land that we have, we got the oceans that we have, we got what we got. Therefore, if we keep adding things to the Earth that may be hurting it, eventually the returns are going to go into the negative rather than to the positive. This is one of the frames of the whole argument around the climate and is it changing and science and all these things, because the Earth is a fixed resource. It's not like we can just duplicate it and start all over with a new one. That's pretty much not how it works. Again, regardless of what side you're on in the conversation, you understand this. So as I already explained to you with the food, we got to be careful. All right. And in American society, because we are a society of consumers, the reason that our economy is what it is, the reason it's as strong as it is because we are a society of consumers. For those of you who know what the economy means, economy simply means financial transactions. Money is exchanging hands. That's the economy. When the economy is really strong, that means everybody who has money is using it. They're spending money and you're making money. And when people feel positive about what's going on in the world and in the economy, then people just spend money. If you feel good about your future prospects of making money, you don't feel nervous about spending money. You'll spend money in the present because you believe you're going to make money in the future. That's how we have a strong economy. And when people feel really positive, we have a really strong economy because everybody's just throwing money out and getting money back, putting money out, getting money back. That's what we want. That's a thriving economy. I buy stuff, you buy stuff, You buy stuff from me, I buy stuff from you. Everybody's good. Now, when people feel nervous or pessimistic about the future, and it's not that they stop having money, it's just that they hold on to their money. So if you feel nervous about your ability to make money tomorrow, even if you have a whole bunch of money today, you might not spend the money because you're worried, well, I might not make any money tomorrow, so I might as well hold on to what I have. And when everybody is thinking like that and nobody's spending any money, then the economy slows down and we get what is known as a recession or a depression. That just means the money's not moving. When money is moving really, really fast, everybody's doing good, we get a thriving economy. And when money's moving slow, like you take the crash in 2006 through 2010, when everybody is kind of pessimistic because people are losing their houses and people are defaulting on mortgages and people can't pay their bills and gas prices are too high. That's when you get a depression or a recession because people are just worried. Hey, I don't know if I should spend anything because I don't know if I'm making the same money tomorrow that I'm making right